The principle is about competing against yourself. It's about self-improvement and being better than you were the day before. Steve Young. Welcome to another episode of My Natural Life, where we inspire your mind, body, and spirit the natural way. I'm your host and trail guide, Vicente Harrison, and I'm here to show you simple ways that you can integrate nature into your everyday life for overall health and wellness. Today, we're getting back to what people traditionally think of when it comes to a healthy body, and that's exercise. There are many benefits to running and jogging. Regular running and jogging offers health benefits such as helps build stronger bones and strengthens muscles, improves cardiovascular fitness, burns plenty of calories, and helps maintain a healthy weight. David Linden, a professor of neuroscience from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, states in an article found on the web that exercise has a dramatic antidepressive effect, says Linden. It blunts the brain's response to physical and emotional stress. The part of the brain associated with memory and learning is shown to increase in volume in those that regularly exercise. Other mental benefits are better memory and focus, better task switching abilities, and elevated mood. Now that news alone should make us want to jump out of our shoes and go. But wait, before we get started, we need some direction first. So we're going to take a short commercial break, but when we return, we will welcome our special guest. Again, as promised, we're bringing to you community wellness makers. And today we have a special guest for today's show, Ironman, marathon runner, father, husband, community leader, and patriarch for our family, Richard Harrison. Richard, how you doing?
Good. How are you this evening?
I'm doing all right. I thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know there's some training and some different things you may have been doing to join us today. But how is your family doing?
Oh, everybody is doing fine. My young adults, not my kids anymore. My young adults are off and running in their directions. I have my oldest daughter who is down in Texas, establishing herself. I have my middle daughter who is now enrolled herself into graduate school and is underway there. Then I have my son. He is starting his second year in college. So they're all off and running.
That's great to hear. Now, the last time I think we were, at least one of the last times we were in town together, uh, we went on a bike ride, and I won't be ashamed to admit you kicked my butt on that bike ride. But tell us, are you getting any riding in these days, and what type of bike are you riding?
I am getting and riding. Every weekend I try to get out and get at least about 50 miles in. Last week, well, not last week, but the week before, I did a 100-mile bike ride. And I'm looking at doing a 150-mile bike ride this up and coming weekend.
Well, that's pretty incredible. When you talk about miles like that, I know many of our viewers don't even understand riding a bike for that length of time, but it takes a special type of person to ride that way. And I often brag on this show in the past. Can you just tell us a little bit about being an Ironman and what got you started in just running in general?
Well, running in general got me. I started back when I joined the church, Living Word Christian Center, here in Chicago, and they have a running club that they bring people out and they teach them how to run a marathon. It just so happened that at that time I had employed two people in my office who went through that program, and that they got to almost the end of it where it was time to run the race, and they both were backing out. And I'm like, wow, you did all this training. How are you going to back out? And so, as me kind of encouraging them to finish, it interested me in trying to do that because I was used to getting out just about every week in my previous employment to, whether it be going to the gym, playing a little basketball, but that was not available to me as often as I would like it to. So I started picking up some weight there, and I thought, running would be a different way in order to approach fitness.
So in terms of running, I know that got you your introduction on just outdoor sports. Tell us how that led to becoming an Ironman.
Well, as I went through the training with the marathon, and that was over a 9-month period, we would train each year. They would bring us out, take us in the classroom, tell us things, and then they would take us out on the road. There was a time in my life when if the coach said, "Hey, go run a mile," I dreaded that. Just the word mile used to almost put a pain in my side before it got there. But then as I got into training for a marathon, as I started to see, I would come back home and tell my wife, "Ooh, I ran 3 miles today." And then I'd come back, and every time I progressed up in miles, I couldn't believe it myself. And I was just thinking, wow, I could have done this some time ago, but it was my mindset that kept me away from that.
That's incredible. And again, just you talking about that, it makes my heart race a little faster. And speaking of races, the name of this episode is Running for Your Mind, Body, and Spirit. How many marathons do you think you completed over your career?
Last count, I did about 13 marathons, probably about 9 half marathons. I think maybe one time I did a 5K.
So you talked about participation in an Ironman before, but what made you decide to really take the jump into an Ironman competition?
It was just that, I got to a point to where now I got to the mindset I wanted to reinvent myself athletically. And so now you reach out and you do something that you haven't done before. and to actually see that you can do it. And it's just like, wow, if I can do that, which was a marathon, and I'd done a number of times, what else can I do? And that was when Ironman came into place. And then I said, wow, I could do that. I could do that. I just keep having to say that, but it's possible. And that's one of the things, logos or the saying for Ironman. It's possible, but it's just getting your mind wrapped around that. And so it took a lot out of me. And when I say it took a lot out of me, it took a lot out of me mentally just to get to that point, from getting out of a swimming pool, going into a large body of water where you're not surrounded by nothing but water. And then it's like, in the pool, sometimes when I first started off, if I got tired, I could grab the side. There's no side when you're in the open water, and there's no bottom. And people always ask me, well, how deep is the water that you swam in? I was like, you know what? I don't care to find out how deep it is, because I don't want to be down there. I want to stay on top of the water. So I swam in Lake Michigan. I swam in Lake, I can't think of the lake that's in Wisconsin, but I also swam in the Caribbean. And it's just like, wow, had I not started off there with those kind of things, then it wouldn't allow me to stretch myself.
So, just you talking about your journey, it makes us believe that we can all take that step. So we talk about those feelings that are involved with signing up, getting ready for a competition, when you're at the starting line, but I'm sure there's like a sense of accomplishment, or while you're in the race, there's a sense of euphoria. Can you talk a little bit about that feeling that you have when in competition or completing one of your marathons or Ironmans?
Well, you know what? It's not as easy, or it's not as welcoming as anyone would think. And I say that because, everything that everyone else thinks they may say, I've been in races where I know, okay, I'm pumped up, and I know it's a marathon race, and I've gotten to a race. I remember specifically, I got in a race. I did a race in Orlando, Florida, the Disney Marathon, and I was 3 miles in, and my body or my mind was telling me, you don't have to do this. Why are you doing this? So go sit down somewhere, And I'm like, you know what? I got 23 miles to go. Shut up and let me get this done. So it's all of those things that during the race, you may have that, at the start line, but then some things will be telling you or trying to work against you. And sometimes you just got to get out there and start moving, and a body in motion stays in motion, as they will always say. But then it gets to a point where you have to, just keep pushing. That's when that will comes in, because everything, your legs start hurting, or your body's more fatigued, and that's when they talk about the wheels falling off, and okay, you got 3/4 of the way done. You got to finish. You can't stop at 3/4 of the way. And so there are different things that happen during the time that the excitement comes when you cross the finish line. Then it's like, oh wow, I did that and I've completed it. What else can I do?
That's incredible. It reminds me of a German cyclist. I believe he was German, named Jens Voigt. And one of the things he said about racing in a championship cycling race is your legs are always talking to you, just like you talked about that conversation you had with yourself. And he said he just had to simply, talk back to his legs and say, shut up, legs, because you have to have the determination to finish the race. So we know that, you talked about you got into running to kind of help your body. And we talked about how through racing, you were able to, encourage your mind and overcome obstacles and overcome challenges while in a race. So in this show, we always talk about mind, body, and spirit. We talked about the body. Talk about how running impacts your body excuse me, your mind and your spirit?
Well, what it helps is, what it has helped me is that it challenges my mind. It challenges my spirit, in the sense that, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And then we have to walk in that. And where that comes from is but we have to put ourselves out there. You say, you have to walk by faith and not by sight. When there are those things that come up, like, one time I was in a race and I walked up that morning, everything seemed to be fine. And this was an Ironman race. And then that wind started coming up. I was like, you know what? I don't mind the wind coming up, just as long as it don't mess with the water and make waves. And it made waves in that water. And it was just like, and I had to remain calm in the sense of knowing what it is what skills that I did in order to get there. And in that particular race, it was rough. And I was unaware that they were pulling people out of the water. I think they pulled about 200 people out of the water. Just said that, hey, it was too much. They didn't want to complete it. And I remember one guy, I turned over on my bike one time because I think I was off course. And I just asked the guy, I said, hey, am I headed the right way? And he asked me a question. He said, do you want to get out of the water? I said, no, I'm not getting out of the water. I didn't ask you that. I just asked him to be on course. So I went through, drank a lot of water. I think in that particular race, when I came out, I just threw up some of the water, but it was just that mindset, it's just calming that mind. And then that was probably one of my toughest, to where, within the swim is not always the smooth water. Sometimes it can be rough. And so that's when you have to, focus in on your mind, keep your mind calm, know what it is that you can do as far as your skills are concerned. And then, always, focus on those things that, reciting scriptures, those things that be not as though they were, and just continue on that. And so that has been the tools that I use both spiritually and with my mind in order to get it done. But that's, but that's not only during that time, during the race event, but that's always through practice as well,
So again, a lot of our viewers may not be familiar. We talked about 5K races. We've talked about Ironman, and some of our viewers are maybe new to both. Can you talk about the difference between a 5K marathon and an Ironman, and again, how your mind helped you achieve in both of those arenas?
Sure. You know what? And one of the things that I would say is that everybody, you have to start somewhere. And so, with the 5K, a 5K is just not just, now I can say that, but a 5K race is a 3.1 mile run. And with that, a person runs 3 miles. Now, 3 miles might seem like a lot right now, but once a person gets their body moving, and then they need to make whatever adjustments they need to make. The main thing is just to continue on, pushing forward. 10K is a 6.2 miles. Then sometimes they'll go up to a 15K, but you don't see that a lot. You'll go up to a half marathon, which is 13.1 miles. Then a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. The only two things that are considered marathons are the 13.1 and the 26.2. And I say that because when I first started, I was saying, a friend of mine, I thought all marathons had different numbers to them. And no, they don't. All marathons are either 13.1 or 26.2. And I think one of the things with the marathon particularly is that, it takes a while to build that up. So if a person's going to take on that, they certainly can go and Google a training program, follow that, or they can get a coach if they need a little bit more motivation. I suggest probably a coach to begin with so that they can help you get the right equipment, know what kind of things you need in order to, it's just not, you just don't go buy a pair of shoes from Marshall's or somewhere. You need to get fitted, you need to see what your gait is like, and all of those things that go into, helping you cross the finish line with the least amount of pain based upon the equipment that you need to get.
Since I'm having and considering that inspiration, what is something I should do? You mentioned a training plan, you mentioned a coach. What are some other things that I should do to prepare for my first race?
Well, first of all, the first thing you need to do is determine what race. Determine what race, give yourself, you could do, depending upon what your physical fitness is right now. I would, if you haven't been physically active, doing whatever for at least an hour period of time, then I would say, check out, go to your doctor, make sure everything's in order as far as your cholesterol, blood pressure, those type of things. The other thing you may want to do, if you're, look at your diet, look at your weight, see where you are there. You certainly don't, and you can. I mean, not all people who run marathons are thin people, but it just depends upon what your joints can handle. So I would say, get a plan, but determine that date first and give yourself, I'm gonna say, depending upon the race. I mean, you could do, if you're going to do a marathon, probably give yourself at least 6 months of training. If you're going to do a 5K, you may be able to do that in probably about 6 weeks of training. Anything in between that, it just depends upon where you are and where you want to go.
Richard, you're so inspirational. What you're doing in marathons is as inspirational as Ironman. We really encourage people to get outdoors in this community, and we really try to target people of color and exposing them to these elements. Do you have a message for other people of color that may want to take on being in a marathon or being in a Ironman competition?
Well, one of the things that I would say is that, right now there are more people rushing to the sport. There are organizations. I think it's the Black Runners. There's Facebook pages out there, and people are gravitating towards that. There's the Black Triathlon Club that's out there. There's now the Black Cyclist Club, and everybody is getting into the spirit of that. Whereas, the only thing that's missing is a Black Swimmers Club right now. But I think that is all incorporated into the triathlon club. But my whole point is that those are sports where we were absent, but now we're starting to fill up in those sports, and people are taking on those challenges, and I think it's being encouraged by seeing more people out there doing it, because a lot of times when we show up to those events, there were very few of us there. I mean, there were some of us there, but compared to everybody else, we were few. And unfortunately, it's that swimming that most of us tend to kind of shy away from. We can do in all things through Christ who strengthens us. So.
Amen to that, Richard. We started here in Portland over 9 years ago, the Major Taylor Cycling Club of Portland. And so I'm very familiar with that group. Thank you for mentioning the other resources and other groups that we could perhaps follow on Facebook and social media. But I'm sure from this conversation, you've generated some fans here and people that really appreciate what you do. So is there any social media that you can share or website where we can kind of follow the course of the remainder of your career as a Ironman and a marathon runner?
Well, the only thing I'm using right now is my personal Facebook, but I don't even put that out there. So I don't have anything that I typically post on. Sometimes I'm working with groups such as Kingdom Running Club and Infinity Multisport, which is who gave me the basis for my training in an Ironman competition. So those two sites, people can look up and kind of follow what they're doing, because I'll pop in there sometimes, but I don't have a site committed to myself in my training.
Richard, we appreciate your time, taking the time away from your family, for being with us here today, for being with us here today. Are there any closing thoughts that you have in order to inspire our viewers that may be still teetering on the fence to get out on the road for their first competition?
Well, again, running, swimming, or biking are all in you. You're very capable of doing those things. There's inspirations such as Ernestine Shepherd, who's the oldest bodybuilder. I mean, she, I think I follow her on Facebook. She was running 10 miles a day. I think the other day she only ran 8. But Ernestine's 85, I think, right now. And she's a bodybuilder. And so, but she didn't pick up those things until she was 50. So it's like, it's never too late. No one's ever too old. You hear people say that all the time. Oh, I think I just ran across, and you have to verify this, but there was a guy in India. He's 119 years of age, and he's a marathon runner. Wow. So it's like, yeah. And so everybody always talk about or think about, oh, well, I heard it's bad on your knees. I heard it's this. I heard it's that. You don't know until you get out there. Just try it. You can always wrap your knees. You can always do those other things. If it may not be cycling, running could be cycling. Just keep it moving. Stay healthy.
Richard, we appreciate you taking time with us today. We appreciate sharing a wealth of knowledge, information, and resources. Thank you again, Richard. Enjoy the rest of the evening with you and your family.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of My Natural Life. We're bringing some fresh new content for this season, so please remember to like, subscribe, and share these messages of wealth with your friends and loved ones. Also remember to hit the notification bell below so that you don't miss a video. As we always say, until we meet again, stay peaceful, stay healthy, and stay natural.